You finally cleared the time and sat down to do the thing, and your body is already finding reasons to stand up. The laptop is open, the document is ready. By every measure, you're ready to start. You've been wanting to start for weeks, but you've made a coffee and another coffee. You've checked your phone, you've moved your headphones from the desk to the table, you've thought about how the desk could really use a tidy. 20 minutes have passed, you haven't started. Sound familiar? The strange part is you do want this. You want to write the thing, build the thing, start the thing, become the kind of person who actually follows through on it. And still, somehow, the moment finally arrives and something in you quietly steps back. This isn't laziness. This isn't even time management exactly. It's something quieter. And once you see what that hesitation is really doing there, it stops feeling like a flaw. Stay with me, because this might change the way you understand every unfinished thing you've been carrying. If that felt uncomfortably familiar, welcome to Psychology Mindset. You know what's strange? This pattern doesn't happen only with chores or obligations. Sometimes it happens with the things you actually care about. Not because you don't want them, but because starting them seems to trigger something you didn't expect. So today, we're going underneath the procrastination itself, not to force you cast it, to understand why wanting something doesn't always make it easier to begin. And this is the part that makes it so frustrating. Why does the hardest moment seem to be the moment right before you start? Why can you think about the project for weeks, imagine how good it would feel to finally do it, even picture the person you'd become if you followed through, and still feel stuck the second it's time to begin? That's what we're answering today. To see why this is not just about wanting it enough, picture two people who both want to write a novel. The first sits down Saturday morning, opens a document, types badly for 2 hours, goes for a walk feeling tired but pleased with herself. The second, same morning, same goal, opens the document, stares at it for 10 minutes, makes a coffee, checks the news, reorganizes the bookshelf, decides she'll start tomorrow when she's in the right headspace. Same goal, wildly different fate inside the head. Sound familiar? The difference isn't motivation, it isn't discipline, it isn't time management. There's a single engine that drives most procrastination, and it isn't laziness. Dr. Tim Pychyl spent his career studying this exact pattern. He arrived at a conclusion that quietly explains millions of people's relationship with their own goals. Procrastination isn't a time management problem, it's an emotion management problem. And here's where the psychology gets genuinely interesting. The clever move your brain is making is this. You think you're avoiding the task. You're not. You're avoiding the feelings the task triggers, the doubt about whether you can do it well, the fear of starting badly, the heaviness of how long you've put it off. The task itself isn't the problem. The feelings the task carries, those are what you're running from. In that moment, your brain takes a quiet deal. Short-term relief over long-term cost. Trade a future you who finished for a present you who feels okay right now. Dr. Fuschia Sirois spent years mapping exactly this pattern. She called it the priority of short-term mood regulation, the brain choosing to feel better now at the cost of what you actually want. Picture this. It's Saturday, 9:14 a.m., coffee made, laptop open, novel chapter blinking. You sit down, and your stomach does that small, wrong-shaped thing. 3 minutes later, you're at the bookshelf, alphabetizing. You don't remember deciding to stand up. That's the deal completing itself. The chapter would have made future you proud. The bookshelf made present you feel okay for 11 minutes. The trade happened before you knew you'd agreed. Now let's make this feel real inside your nervous system. Think of your brain like a circuit breaker, except the load it's monitoring isn't electricity, it's emotion. A circuit breaker has one job. When the load gets uncomfortable, cut the power. It doesn't weigh the cost. It doesn't ask whether you needed the lights on. It just trips. And that's exactly what happens every time you sit down to do the thing. The difficult feeling rises, the doubt, the weight of how long you've waited, and the load hits the threshold. Sirois and Pycyl's work point to the same pattern. Procrastination often favors immediate emotional relief over the longer-term goal, the same trade-off the breaker makes between cutting the load now and keeping the lights on. The breaker trips, the desk gets tidied, the coffee gets made, the phone gets checked. Anything to drop the load below the danger line. Here's the part that changes everything. The breaker isn't broken, it isn't weak, it isn't working against you. It's calibrated for a danger that no longer exists. And once you understand that, the little distractions start looking very different. You sit down to write the side project, the blog post, the novel chapter, the thing you've been wanting to make for weeks. And first, naturally, you check your phone. Just once, someone might have messaged. A notification catches your eye. Then another. 15 minutes later, you're watching a video about how to start the exact type of project you're not starting. Why? You decide the lighting is wrong. You open 3 tabs, productivity apps, the best playlist for focus, a Reddit thread about other people who also can't start. You close them without reading. You open them again. And this is the part nobody talks about. We have never lived in a world so perfectly designed to hand you an escape route. Every notification is a door out. Every scroll is a reason to stay on the surface. The project requires depth. The phone offers relief. And the brain always picks relief. By the time you actually start, if you start at all, 3 hours have passed. The desk is tidy, the apps have downloaded, and the thing is still waiting. And here's what nobody really says out loud. You feel a strange mix of dread and relief every time the breaker trips. Dread because the task is still there. Relief because, for now, you don't have to feel it. You feel quiet self-betrayal, the daily kind, where the version of you that wanted to make the thing watches the version of you that found a reason not to. You feel exhausted by the endless half-starts. The energy spent not starting is somehow more than starting would have cost. You feel guilt that doesn't quite resolve because the productivity advice doesn't fit, and you can't explain to anyone, including yourself, why the thing you most want is the thing you most can't begin. Now, here's where I want to be honest with you, because this matters. For many people, this didn't begin with adulthood. It began long before there was anything important to procrastinate, long before there was a novel, a side project, a thing to avoid. Maybe you grew up somewhere mistakes were costly, where doing something badly drew attention you didn't want. The drawing brought home from school that someone said was fine, said in a way that meant it wasn't. Maybe you watched an adult flinch every time something they made was less than perfect. The relative who cooked a meal and spent the whole dinner apologizing for it. The parent who started a hobby and quietly dropped it the moment it got hard. Here's the part that matters. You didn't decide any of this. You observed it, and your nervous system took note. Not started yet is always safer than started and not great. You're not avoiding the task. You're avoiding a feeling the task has been carrying for a very long time. And the feeling came first. So here's the truth. Your procrastination isn't a character flaw. It's not laziness, lack of discipline, or evidence that you don't care. Think of it this way. A scar isn't a wound. It's what the body built to protect itself from one. And it did its job perfectly. Your avoidance is the scar. You're someone whose nervous system learned very early that imperfect starts could cost you something real. So you became someone who refused to start imperfectly. That wasn't weakness. That was intelligence and a situation where it was needed. And yes, it has a cost now. The thing you wanted to make doesn't get made, but the loyalty itself isn't broken. The loyalty is to a younger version of you who couldn't afford a bad first attempt. What looks like avoidance is actually old protection, and old protection deserves understanding before it deserves change. So where does that leave you? Not with a huge life overhaul, with one tiny moment, the second before you escape. You know exactly where this happens. Laptop open, document blinking, the familiar wrong-shaped feeling in your stomach. Your hand is already drifting to the phone, the coffee, the pile of books that suddenly needs alphabetizing. Just notice the drift. Don't fight it. Don't white-knuckle it. Don't push through. Just see briefly what your nervous system thought was unsafe about starting. Name it, even quietly. There it is again. Because once you can see it, you stop being it. The load drops by a tiny amount. That's it. That's the whole first step. Not more discipline, not a better system, just a moment of recognition between the feeling rising and the hand reaching for the escape. Sometimes the alarm holds for 1 minute longer than it used to, and you start. That's the door. Before you go, tell me this. What's the one thing you've been wanting to start that keeps not getting started? Not a task, the thing. The one that's been sitting in the back of your mind for months, maybe years. A book you said you'd write? A project you've opened and closed 17 times? A version of yourself you've been quietly postponing? Drop it below. Just naming it counts as a start. If this finally put words to something you've been carrying for a long time, hit subscribe. This is exactly what we talk about here every week. And remember, your procrastination isn't your enemy. It's an old loyalty to a younger you who couldn't afford to do something badly the first time. That version of you was doing the best they could. You still are.
Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.